All right. Two episodes of the Golden V podcast on Friday, January the 10th, 2025. My live this morning, live on our YouTube channel for the Golden V podcast with Steve Ewan from Post Media in the province with our regular Vancouver Giants WHL monthly update. And I'll be sharing that later today on our Buzzsprout site, buzzsprout.com/1869778, or go to the goldenvpodcast.ca, which redirects to our Buzzsprout page, and I'll put up the podcast today with Steve. But this is something I'm trying new, a little bit of a different feature for the Golden V podcast here with the Vancouver Warriors game tonight at Rogers Arena at 7 p.m. against the San Diego Seals. Seals coming in with a 3-2 record, Warriors with a 2-1 record with that opening week one season loss to the Colorado Mammoth. And the Warriors have had a bit of a strange schedule. I'm just looking at an article here on the Warriors website about how they've had 3 byes to start the season. Hence why San Diego has played 5 games and the Warriors have only played 3. But it's a busy month for the Warriors this month. Trying to find the graphic here. They play 5 games this month. They play the Seals tonight, January the 10th at Rogers Arena. They are in next week I'm just looking at it here, in Ottawa at 4 p.m. on TSN to play the recently moved New York Riptide, who are now the Ottawa Black Bears. They then play next Sunday the 19th in Philadelphia against the Wings at 3 p.m., which is on NLL Plus. Back home 2 weeks from tonight to play the Black Bears again at 7. Then off on January 31st to play the Halifax Thunderbirds in Halifax, that game on TSN. So I should be able to set the PVR for both those games, just making a camera adjustment here and a microphone adjustment so you can hear me a little better. But yeah, another Warriors game drops after a 2-week absence for the Warriors when they went into Calgary. And I wouldn't say they stunned anybody, but what a gutsy performance. Their first half where they outscored Calgary, picking up 10 goals. Calgary's strong push in the third quarter to make things 10-8 for Calgary. But then the Warriors, who showed their resilience and showed why I think they've changed. Obviously, in the Kurt Milosky era, Kurt has preached so much about grit, about determination, about never quit. And the Warriors pulled away from the Roughnecks in the fourth quarter in Calgary and came out with the victory. That is not the Warriors of old to me. That is not the Warriors of 2 to 3 years ago. I know Brad Minsky talked about on our podcast to kick off the NLL season how they had 3 different coaches in 3 years with Chris Gill, Troy Cordingley, and then Kurt. But this is the second year of Kurt Milosky's tenure in Vancouver, and we're really seeing the fruits of all Kurt's labors and changes to this team. I can't remember the last time I saw a Warriors game where the Warriors went out to a lead, unlike the first week against Colorado, and they always would lose to Colorado in the second half, like they did to start the season this year. The Warriors held on and actually pulled away from Calgary, which I thought was pretty impressive. And some pretty unique milestones in that game for the Vancouver Warriors. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the San Diego Seals as well, because there's some interesting storylines or some interesting pieces of information on the Seals. And back last summer, I had Chris Welch, who is the GM and governor of the Victoria Shamrocks, who were in the midst of an undefeated WLA season. And the storyline I want to talk about with the Seals here, obviously, is the play of Chris Origlieri for the Shamrocks last season. And Chris is the goalie for the San Diego Seals. So I'm anxious to see what performance we're going to get out of Chris tonight. Obviously, the Warriors are going to be going with Aiden Walsh. I don't even have to look at the lineup. I'm almost guaranteeing that Aiden Walsh is going to be in net. And I know Brett, if he were here today, would verify that. But the other thing that's interesting, too, is we'll wonder with 5 games this month and those 2 games back-to-back, if we're going to see an appearance by Connor O'Toole. But just looking in the meantime here at Chris Origlieri stats, led all goaltenders in wins with 10, goals against at 6.70, save percentage 8.42, and 4 assists. Origlieri was led the Shamrocks obviously to the Mann Cup. Shamrocks lost to Six Nations Chiefs. Went for the second year in a row. But Chris was named goaltender of the year for the Shamrocks. I don't know what his status will be for the upcoming WLA season, but he is in net tonight for the Seals, and I think that poses some challenges for the Warriors. We'll see how they respond. Obviously, the Seals and the Black Bears embroiled in an interesting game last weekend. Kind of ironic, the Seals played the Black Bears last weekend, and some of the storylines that came out of that game. I'm just going to pull them up here. Obviously, with that close game, Seals beat the Black Bears 6-5. Quite the low score for a lacrosse game. But I thought that was interesting because this is the next two opponents, obviously, for the Vancouver Warriors this week and next week, as I mentioned off the top of the show. And so I'm just going to share this in the chat because I found this very interesting because obviously I don't know if the Warriors maybe or may not have really been tested yet, although I think they passed a big test with that win in Calgary back on December 28th. But just looking at this article on the San Diego Seals website, I've shared it in the chat. There's a couple of things that stood out here. Chris Origlieri was the story tonight for the Seals, of course, as the Seals held Ottawa scoreless for the final 37 minutes. Origlieri making 31 saves. 2-2 game after one quarter. Ben McIntosh scores, and Rob Hellier off the power play. A nice feed from Wes Berg at the 5:39 mark. Seals added another pair in the second, but were outscored Ottawa by 3-2 in that period. Trailing 5-4 at halftime, but then winning, obviously, 6-5. And I thought that was really interesting in that game, and he only ended up being 6-5. So I think a pretty substantial challenge in front of the Warriors tonight. I'd be interested to see how they respond to that challenge. I don't necessarily think they're going to win, but I think it might be a tight game, and it'd be a huge boost for this team should they win this game against San Diego. I remember being at a San Diego game, I want to say in 2022 at the end of the season. Obviously, Alex Bouquet still in net for the Warriors at that time. I mean, the Warriors had a tough season that season, but it was a close, and I believe it was a 10-9 game for San Diego. But that ended that Warriors season. Obviously, there was no playoff spot for the Warriors as well. But it was a good individual game by the Warriors that night. But this team now, obviously heading into play San Diego tonight, has changed so much. And I wanted to get one thing out while I stream live to the YouTube channel, because you know that I'll be wearing it tonight. It, ladies and gentlemen, is Country Night at Rogers Arena, and I have my authentic Gun Club Stetson to wear. I've worn it to the last couple of country nights. There's two country nights by the Warriors this season. Going to put the old cowboy hat on for the rest of the podcast here and keep it looking nice and straight. But there's two country nights this year for the Warriors, and there's one rock and roll night. I'm just going to pull up the schedule here off Twitter. But some interesting storylines developing. Like I said, for this game, really anxious to see how the Warriors respond to another tough test and a team, to me, that is so well ranked in the NLL. I know Brett had said at one point on a previous podcast he felt the Seals were a team that always tried to buy wins by signing a lot of free agents. But I just want to share some really positive news on Warriors coach Kurt Malosky as well. With obviously that win in Calgary marks for Kurt his 100th career win on December the 28th against the Roughnecks, which was definitely a storyline going into that game just because of Kurt's tenure in Calgary, NLL championships. And I remember thinking when Kurt came to Vancouver, the surprise that I had that Kurt was coming here, not really knowing that much about Kurt at that point, not really knowing about the fact that he's from here, from Coquitlam, came back home, all his success here. In the Warriors article that I share here shares a little bit of that, right? Because it talks a lot about things that Kurt's done: Minto Cups, Man Cups, professional level, national level. You know, he was with the Canadian lacrosse team this year in the World Championships. 100 wins for Kurt obviously is big, but it's really nice, I thought, and a great story that he got it in Calgary against his former team after the Warriors were able to successfully sign him away from the Roughnecks. So that's another storyline for tonight, but there's a couple other little pieces I wanted to throw out here. And here's the Warriors article Friday marks the first rodeo between the Warriors and the Seals this season on Country Night presented by Yellowstone. Obviously, another thing I saw on Twitter too for the Vancouver Warriors, the Vancouver Warriors offering the first 500 fans an authentic Warriors cowboy hat. I really have to respect the Warriors because they are doing one heck of a job to market this team, market these games, and I think it's helping that the Warriors are winning. I have the season ticket in the party zone. I was told to try to get a friend access to a ticket, and the Warriors party zone is actually sold out for this game. So I'm really interested to see what tonight's crowd is going to be like. Looking forward to being there. Got a Warriors season ticket for the party zone all season this season. We'll be visiting, obviously, with my friend Earl Thomas, who's been on the podcast in the past. Want to give Earl a plug. Check out his podcast, Voice Power. I'm just scrolling through some things on Twitter here to see what I can share. Here's a great picture of Timber with some guys. Mosey on down to Rogers Arena for Country Night. Okay, so we got the 50-50 running here. We've got the I'm just trying to find the post with the country or the Warriors country hats, and here they are. Obviously, with the Yellowstone piece on, I'm going to do a little screen share. I'm going to share a little bit more about tonight's game because there's some interesting stats popping up too while I pull up the Howdy Warriors fans. There it is on Twitter. I want to move over to the article because there's a couple of important stats I want to throw out here. Obviously, Keegan Ball, 1 goal, 5 assists in the game against Calgary. Obviously, it was Kevin Crowley's night, 5 goals and 3 assists across 60 minutes of play. Peyton Cormier getting 2 goals. Bowering had 2 goals and an assist. Riley Lowen with 1 goal and 3 assists. Jonathan Peshko, 1 goal, 3 assists. Ryan Martell and Braden Lady. Obviously, the other interesting thing that we're seeing here based on the NLL draft is some of the picks that Kurt had made in the last couple of drafts already stepping up to contribute offensively. And a little bit more on the Seals here in this article too. Looking at Rob Hellier, Wesley Berg, and Ryan Benish, obviously, who are the Seals players to watch. Several BC-born players, Drew Belgrave of New Westminster, Graydon Bradley of Vernon. I don't actually know, or if it's actually been said, where Chris Origlieri is from, but I still think it's significant that Origlieri starts tonight for the Seals at Rogers Arena, given the fact that he played so well for the Shamrocks last season, and he was really one of the stars of the WLA last season. But whistle starts tonight, or I should say the whistle blows tonight at 7 p.m. Warriors play San Diego again, just looking at this article, not until March 7th. A couple other storylines. I know Brett Mitski, captain, will be there tonight, and Brett had talked about rookie Alex Stathakis taking the draws, and Brett emphasized that on one of our previous episodes. I'm interested to see how Stathakis does on draws tonight. Brett obviously telling us that he hadn't played the box game that much coming from the U.S., but has acquitted himself very well, and I don't have the stats on Stathakis in terms of his number of draws or what his percentage is like. But this is going to be an exciting game for the Warriors. I don't know if I can predict the win at this point just because of how good San Diego's been the past few seasons, even though they make their early playoff exits. But I'm going to wrap it up there, and I'll talk to everyone soon. Okay.